Everyone thinks they understand women until something breaks. Maybe it's heartbreak, maybe it's rejection, or maybe it's that moment where you realize you've built your entire idea of love on something imagined. The hardest part isn't what they did. It's realizing how much you misread. We grow up being fed a narrative. Women are gentle, nurturing, emotional, mysterious. But what if those aren't truths? Just projections. Friedrich Nietzsche didn't hate women, but he didn't worship them either. And that alone made him dangerous. He once wrote, "When you go to women, don't forget the whip." That quote has followed him for over a century, ripped from its context, paraded around as proof that he was just another bitter old man with a grudge. But here's the twist. Nietzsche wasn't interested in demonizing women. He was trying to strip away illusion. What he said still makes people flinch. But if you look closer, if you stop flinching and really examine what he saw, you'll find something far more unsettling. Because Nietzsche didn't just point a finger at women. He pointed it at everyone, at how we lie to ourselves, how we romanticize weakness, how we turn people into symbols and then blame them when reality breaks the fantasy. And here's the truth most people never reach. If you miss the deeper message, you don't just misread Nietzsche, you misread your own life. And to understand why, we need to start at the root. His relationship with women and the heartbreak that rewired how he saw everything. To understand Nietzsche's views on women, we must first consider his personal experiences and the societal context in which he lived. Nietzsche's relationships with women were complex and often strained. One of the most notable figures in his life was Andreas-Salomé, a Russian-born writer and intellectual. Nietzsche was deeply infatuated with her, but she rejected his romantic advances, choosing instead to maintain a platonic relationship. This rejection had a profound impact on Nietzsche, leading to feelings of isolation and bitterness. Moreover, Nietzsche's mother and sister held traditional Christian values, which often clashed with his philosophical beliefs. He viewed their influence as a representation of the societal norms that he opposed. These personal experiences contributed to his critical perspective on women and the roles they played in society. However, it's essential to recognize that Nietzsche's critiques were not solely based on personal grievances. They were also a reflection of his broader philosophical views on truth, morality, and societal structures. Nietzsche's portrayal of women wasn't always literal. It was often metaphorical. And to see what he was really saying, we have to decode what woman symbolized in his war against modern morality. Nietzsche's writings often employ metaphorical language, and his references to woman are no exception. In his preface to Beyond Good and Evil, he provocatively states, "Supposing that truth is a woman, what then?" This isn't a literal assertion, but a metaphorical critique of philosophers who have approached truth with a dogmatic and possessive mindset. By likening truth to a woman, Nietzsche challenges the traditional, often masculine pursuit of objective truth. He suggests that truth, like a woman, is elusive and cannot be grasped through force or rigid methodology. Instead, it requires a more nuanced, perhaps even seductive approach, one that acknowledges its complexity and resists oversimplification. This metaphor extends beyond gender dynamics. It's a broader commentary on the limitations of conventional philosophy. Nietzsche criticizes the tendency to impose rigid structures on concepts that are inherently fluid and multifaceted. By personifying truth as a woman, he underscores the need for a more flexible and interpretive engagement with knowledge. Furthermore, Nietzsche's use of feminine metaphors reflects his broader philosophical themes, such as the critique of absolute truths and the embrace of perspectivism. He invites readers to consider that what we often accept as truth may be shaped by our perspectives, biases, and cultural constructs. Understanding this metaphor is crucial to grasping Nietzsche's philosophical project. It reveals his challenge to traditional epistemology and his call for a more dynamic and interpretive approach to understanding the world. Nietzsche's philosophy, while often criticized for its apparent misogyny, has also been interpreted as offering a framework for feminist thought, particularly through the concept of the Überfrau, or overwoman. This idea extends Nietzsche's notion of the Übermensch, the individual who transcends societal norms to create their own values. Feminist thinkers have explored how the Überfrau embodies the potential for women to redefine themselves beyond traditional roles imposed by a patriarchal society. Rather than simply inverting male-dominated values, the Überfrau represents a radical redefinition of womanhood, one that is self-affirmed and autonomous. This perspective aligns with Nietzsche's critique of slave morality, where values are defined in opposition to those of the dominant class. In the context of gender, women adopting values imposed by a male-oriented system perpetuate their own subjugation. The Überfrau, instead, creates values originating from her own perspective, free from the constraints of societal expectations. By embracing the concept of the Überfrau, feminist thought finds in Nietzsche's philosophy a call for women to become creators of their own identities, challenging the status quo and asserting their individuality. Nietzsche's philosophy has often been subject to misinterpretation, particularly in the modern era. His concepts, such as the Übermensch and will to power, have been co-opted and distorted to support various ideologies, some of which Nietzsche himself would have likely opposed. For instance, the Nazi regime appropriated Nietzsche's idea of the Übermensch to promote their notion of an Aryan master race. However, Nietzsche was critical of nationalism and anti-Semitism, and he did not advocate for any form of racial superiority. His sister, Elisabeth Förster-Nietzsche, who was sympathetic to Nazi ideology, played a significant role in editing and promoting his works in a way that aligned with the regime's agenda. In contemporary times, Nietzsche's ideas continue to be misused. Some interpret his will to power as a justification for ruthless ambition and dominance, ignoring the nuanced and complex nature of his philosophy. Nietzsche's emphasis was on self-overcoming and the creation of one's own values, not on the subjugation of others. Moreover, the digital age has seen a resurgence of interest in Nietzsche's thoughts, particularly among those seeking to challenge conventional norms and explore alternative perspectives on morality and truth. However, this renewed interest sometimes leads to oversimplified or selective readings of his work, stripping away the depth and context essential to understanding his philosophy. To truly grasp Nietzsche's insights, one must engage with his writings critically and thoughtfully, recognizing the historical and cultural contexts in which they were developed. Nietzsche's exploration of morality introduces the concepts of master morality and slave morality. These frameworks offer a lens through which we can examine societal values and, by extension, gender dynamics. Master morality originates from those in positions of power. It values strength, nobility, and self-affirmation. In this framework, good is synonymous with qualities that enhance one's power and autonomy. Conversely, slave morality emerges from the oppressed. It values humility, empathy, and patience, traits that serve as coping mechanisms in the face of subjugation. Here, good is defined in opposition to the values of the powerful. When applied to gender, these moralities can be seen in the traditional roles assigned to men and women. Historically, men have been associated with master morality, assertive, dominant, and self-reliant. Women, on the other hand, have been linked to slave morality, nurturing, submissive, and community-oriented. Nietzsche critiques this dichotomy, suggesting that it limits the potential of individuals by confining them to roles that may not align with their true nature. He challenges us to transcend these imposed moralities and create our own values. This perspective invites a re-evaluation of gender roles and encourages the pursuit of authenticity beyond societal expectations. So what was the dark truth Nietzsche saw? It wasn't just about women. It was about us, about how easily we fall in love, not with people, but with illusions, with the ideas we project onto others and the roles we expect them to play. Nietzsche didn't offer comfort. He never wanted to. His entire philosophy was an act of psychological demolition, tearing down the facades we build to avoid uncomfortable truths. His remarks on women weren't prescriptions. They were provocations, not designed to be accepted, but to be questioned, challenged, understood. Because in forcing us to confront his harshest lines, Nietzsche forces us to confront the parts of ourselves that would rather stay asleep. He used woman as a mirror, sometimes tender, sometimes violent, but always reflecting something deeper than gender, something universal. And this is where most people stop short. They take the quote, react to the tone, and move on. But those who stay, who wrestle with the full context, see something else, a thinker trying to expose the lies we live by. Whether you agree with him or not, the challenge he poses is timeless. Will you live in illusions that feel safe, or face a reality that might strip you down, but give you the chance to rebuild, stronger, clearer, and more awake than ever before? That's the real lesson. And it was never just about women. It was about the courage to see and to think darker,